Caregiving can feel overwhelming and at times isolating. If you're caring for someone with Alzheimer's or another form of dementia, you're carrying a lot. You don't have to do it alone. There is help, there are resources, and there is hope. This is GutPunched, Alzheimer's and Caregivers. Greetings and welcome. This is GutPunched, Alzheimer's and Caregivers, the not-so-sexy podcast, episode 90. Welcome. I'm your host, Jeff Edwards, and thanks for joining us today. How's everybody doing? Hope you're doing well. Are we having fun yet? I hope so. Remember, you have to chill every once in a while, and I'm learning that myself. And don't forget, Valentine's Day is just around the corner if it applies to you. Today, we will have part one of our interview with Dr. John Huffaker from NPRC as we discuss about doing something because doing nothing is not an option. Plus, we'll have another listener question answered in What's New in Alzheimer's with Dr. John Huffaker. Now, the questions are coming in pretty good, so if you have a question you'd like answered by the doctor about Alzheimer's and dementia, send them to us at gutpunchac@outlook.com. Now, a couple of things. If you happen to live in Southwest Florida, you should know that McGregor Baptist Church is putting on their annual Alzheimer's, Dementia, and the Gospel Seminar, Saturday, February 21st, 9 a.m. to 3 p.m. Check-in starts at 8:30. Seminar starts promptly at 9. And for more information about the seminar or their dementia ministry, you can go to mcgregor.net/dementia. I went last year, and it's extremely helpful. Going again this year. And finally, I had an opportunity to travel to Naples, Florida, to visit Alzheimer's Support Network. It's a great resource for people of Southwest Florida. It was a nice, large space that is very clean and very warm. The staff I met were extremely knowledgeable, friendly, and active. All of them contribute to the cause as they fight brain change. Check them out at https://support.network. Alzheimer's Support Network, remembering those who forget. I'd like to say thank you to our sponsors for their support of GutPunched, Alzheimer's and Caregivers, NPRC, which stands for Neuropsychiatric Research Center, a clinical trial center dedicated to advancing research and treatment for memory loss and Alzheimer's disease. And the fine people at Heart, Body, and Mind Home Care, nationally acclaimed, award-winning home care. Our 5 tenets or rules are the backbone of everything we do. They are simple, but very important. 1, you must take care of yourself because if something happens to you, who is going to take care of your loved one? 2, you can't do it alone. You need help. Find a good caregiver group. 3, make a list of friends or relatives or coworkers who have offered to help. Use it. 4, create a help signal. Identify a cue or phrase to confirm your loved one is comfortable with receiving help. 5, caregiving. Love it or hate it. It will be your life till it's not. So give it your all.
We'll be right back to GutPunched, Alzheimer's and Caregivers.
If you find that it's time that you must start looking for a good home care company for your loved one, I'd like you to consider talking with Heart, Body, and Mind Home Care, a nationally award-winning company. They are top of the line in service. They will tell you service is their passion, excellence is their promise, and that's the honest truth. They are very knowledgeable and skilled at what they provide. On top of that, they are just really nice people who love helping others in need. They are Alzheimer's and Dementia and Parkinson's care specialists. You can find them on the web at hbmhomecare.com, or you can call them at area code 239-603-6455. And you'll find a link for them on our website, gutpunch.com. Heart, Body, and Mind Home Care, your best choice for home care.
This is GutPunched, Alzheimer's and Caregivers. What's New in Alzheimer's with John Huffaker.
Well, John, we have a letter from Bobby P. from Long Island, New York. He says, my wife was just diagnosed with MCI. What are the best medicines to start her on now and before it gets worse? What should you do?
Good question, Bobby P. Your wife was just diagnosed with MCI, so it's mild cognitive impairment. That is a diagnosis that can represent quite a few. It's a pretty broad term. But some of the best things you can do are some medications that are symptom modifying, meaning they can help with those symptoms. They're not doing anything for the underlying disease, but they can help with some of those memory issues. Good example, and the common ones would be like a donepezil or Aricept, and there is also memetine. Those are very common medications. They're great to start with the MCI, and it's definitely some of the medications I would look at getting on board right from the beginning.
Okay, great. Thank you. Worried about memory issues or experiencing memory loss? Well, speak up. Don't be ashamed. I got to say, in episode 88, I brought up an issue with people not talking about Alzheimer's if they or a loved one has been diagnosed, and not sharing diagnosis, keeping it a secret for whatever reason. Now, I realize that it's a personal choice. But by keeping it a secret, the opportunity to share with others or physicians or somebody else who is going through the same thing, they don't get the benefit of garnering more information that may help themselves and their loved one. And we always talk about finding a support group. That's the best thing I ever did. Where sharing information and situations can save you valuable time and money. I'm talking with John Huffaker from the Neuropsychiatric Research Center. How you doing today, John? Good?
I'm good, thank you.
So, John, why do you think people keep quiet about this? What would you suggest they do when they get that gut punch diagnosis? And how should people approach the beginning of the journey? I think they should do something, because doing nothing is not an option, right?
Absolutely. I always tell people, if you don't do anything, we 100% know the outcome. These are the things we don't like to hear, but unfortunately, Alzheimer's is a terminal disease, and depending on what statistics you look at, it's the 5th or 6th leading cause of death in the United States. So I agree with you. Doing nothing isn't an option. You have to be proactive, or you have to be proactive for your family member. You need to be their biggest support group and seek out options. I always tell people, get educated, learn as much as you can so you can make the decision what's best for you or your loved one. And that might vary for every person, but the more you learn, the better you'll make those decisions. And when you talk about why is this one of those diseases that people don't talk about, and I don't think it's specific to Alzheimer's, but I do think that people, for whatever reason, I always say this, any disease or illness above the neck, people don't like to talk about it. You think about it, people don't talk a lot about certain types of, of depression, anxiety, dementia, Alzheimer's. For whatever reason, if it's kind of from our neck down, if it's our heart or it's our stomach, people talk about it freely and openly. But it involves the brain. A lot of times people are reluctant. And I always tell them, you got to understand something. To break it down to just simple science of what we're looking at is these are diseases of an organ. And it doesn't matter if that organ is a heart, a lung, or the brain. It's a disease of an organ. Now, the difference is the symptoms from like Alzheimer's, that impacts memory, that impacts things that for whatever reason, sometimes people are a little more reluctant to speak up about. But I think when people do seek out opinions and options, just knowing the fact that they're being proactive, it changes their entire outlook.
Yeah.
And I can't stress it enough to individuals. I'm like, you know what? When you get that diagnosis, somebody gives a diagnosis of Alzheimer's, yeah, that's a hard conversation. And I know it hits home. It's hard. People, if you get that diagnosis and all of a sudden you go home and you're thinking, oh man, what's going to happen? And it is tough. But I always tell people the important part is you now have an answer. Now you can start to deal with it accordingly. And honestly, 10 years ago, we have many more options now than what we even had 5 or 10 years ago. We do have medicines that have been approved by the FDA that are having some success. I always tell everyone they're good. They're not great, but those are good medications. I mean, even in research, we've probably advanced more in the last 3 to 5 years than we have 20 years prior. I think if somebody gets the diagnosis today, even everything you read about, that's history. That's old news. We're moving fast enough that I think that most of what we read, by the time we read it, is probably already outdated.
Wow.
Just like if somebody got a diagnosis of cancer. Yeah, it's tough, but at the same token, you got to try to do something. And that's part of what we do, but it's also why I always encourage somebody, follow up with their doctor. Go see a specialist if you need to. Do something.
I like the analogy analogy from the neck down. One of the reasons I'm interested in this is because people say, well, why don't you have more interviews? And I said, well, I'd love to do an interview every week, but it's really hard to get people to talk about it. It's GutPunched, Alzheimer's and Caregivers. I've been adding a Not Too Sexy podcast, and I do that for a reason. People ask, what do you do? I said, well, I tell them I do a podcast. Oh, they're real excited. They ask, whoa, and they're like, okay, tell me about it. I said, listen, it's not a sexy topic. Yeah, but tell me about it. Not a sexy topic. It's about Alzheimer's and dementia. Oh, and I get that all the time. People are reluctant to talk and to share. I have a friend who does a podcast or organ transplant. And he said, man, I get people calling me from all over the country. I'm so busy. Every day I get a call from somebody who wants to tell their story. And he says, why don't you do that? I go, I do, but nobody wants to talk about this topic. And that, I think, in the long run, or maybe even in the short term, it hinders people from learning more and getting treatment quicker and making progress. I don't know how you change that, but it's just one of those things. It's somewhat frustrating.
Oh, I think you're right. I could imagine you experience that. And I would also say this, though. I do think that more people are talking about it now than what we did in the past, but we have a long ways to go. And you probably see this. The people that want to talk about it, I would say, unfortunately, it usually takes having some sort of personal experience, whether it's a family member, a loved one, a friend, something. They experience what they go through, changed a level of interest. They want to know more, or now they'll just have more questions. And you probably get that even on your podcast. You do interact with, have some very personal experience. Mm-hmm. And the hard part is Alzheimer's doesn't have any more prevalence now than it did 30 years ago. But the difference is we're more accurate at diagnosing it. So we diagnose many more people than what we did 20, 30 years ago. And people are living long. And this is a disease of aging. Yeah. The longer we live, the higher risk we have of developing it. So I think it's becoming more of a topic and a more component of society just because we're identifying it sooner. People are living longer and there are treatments. I just saw last night, I was watching TV. I think I saw 2 or 3 commercials for some of the treatments that are now available. Well, just in that, probably getting the word out will hopefully get more people being willing and open to discuss it.
Well, I hope it keeps going in that direction. When somebody gets a diagnosis, what would you advise that person to do? And what are ways to identify how to know there is a problem? Is there a simple guideline to follow and say, gee, keep on forgetting things or keep watching the same TV program over and over again? Are those the signs that you would look for?
And those can be. I have noticed that. And somebody will know when they hear what I say to this. I'm like, when you see it. And what I mean is sometimes it's hard to describe the subtleties. Like, okay, they'll be like, is this just normal for aging? Meaning, we're not 30 anymore. Of course, our memories aren't what they were when we were younger. But the difference. Somebody is repeating the same story. Every now and then, all of us can, get busy or forget if we told somebody a story. But when they're doing that frequently, I think, that you start to notice it. And if it's one of your family members or, somebody you love, you see it. Now, I think it's human nature because you do love them. I think it goes one of 2 ways. Some people are overly vigilant, like they are critiquing every little thing that person they love, everything they do. They're like, boy, is there something going on here? Or they do the opposite. I think because they are with them all the time and they love them, they're a little dismissive. They try to say, well, they got a lot going on or they're getting older. The hard part is at the very beginning of the disease, it's hard to distinguish it.
Yeah.
And that's where I think it's important at this point of, honestly, I don't know the exact age, but I'm going to make this up in my own mind. I would say by probably age 60, you probably should get in some sort of basic cognitive test. So you're creating a timeline. We know we can start comparing something we can watch over time to see if there is a change because the differences are subtle at the beginning. And some people that we see here, it's pretty amazing. Now, I said some people are so self-aware that they're feeling they're having some memory issues and they come and see us and they're right, they were. And I have other people when we test them, they do not test well at all, but they're in complete denial to what is happening. I think we're individuals and we handle things differently. And I think that's why it's important. I know we talked last time about that p-tau blood test, but I think those type of tests that are very objective, and it doesn't matter, not based on how we answer questions. It's not based on what our family member sees. It's a hard laboratory test that gives us a true value. I think that's invaluable.
Mm-hmm. You went right into my next question. How do you determine if it's time for someone to be tested? So you kind of talked about that. How would you determine if there's a benefit to check out clinical research trials? Is it early on, or is it midstream, or when do you determine that?
I think that's probably both, right? Actually, I'd say early on, midstream, and then actually even in the later stages. And here's why. Whenever we see somebody, we always talk about what approved treatments there are. We got to cover that. That's the right thing to do. And those are medicines we've worked on here in research for over 10 years. So we're very proud that those medicines are an option. So we talk about that. Now, the interesting part is that those medications are best when they're used at the early to middle stage of the disease. We are doing research now where we are treating people in very early stage. We're looking at doing a study coming up soon that somebody doesn't even have symptoms. We're going to have to test them. They will be, like I mentioned earlier, like stage 1 Alzheimer's. So they have elevated proteins, but no symptoms yet. So the disease is running in the background, but they have no symptoms. And we're going to start treating those. That's a great time for research, very early on. That middle intermediate, that's probably the bulk of patients that seek out treatment because they're now having symptoms. It's maybe even impacting their life. Those are great candidates. And then even in the later stages, because there is no treatments, if they went to their regular doctor or went to a neurologist, there aren't treatments for late stage. In research, we don't have probably honestly as many projects that we work on in the later stages, but we do. So actually clinical research, in my opinion, I say this as a person doing clinical research, but I think they should at least investigate that, see what options they are at any stage they have of the disease. It doesn't mean you have to do the research, but learn something, educate yourself, see if that's a good option. And maybe it is and maybe it isn't, but I think it's just part of educating yourself. I tell everybody too with this is a tricky disease. Let's call it like it is. You get one shot at it. There's no do-over. So you got to try to investigate every option and every possible treatment that there is.
Right. Now, when someone does come to NPRC with questions, what procedures do you follow when you're consulting with them? Is there a standard questionnaire or standard procedure, or is it case by case?
No, it's very standardized. So we go through, standard medical history, medications they take. We're looking, is there anything in their medical history, any medications they take that could be contributing to some memory disorders. And there are times sometimes it can be as simple as that not that we don't treat medically here. All we do is research. But say there are some medications that can cause a little bit of memory fog. We might see that and recommend to them, you need to go and talk to your doctor and see if they can prescribe a different medication in this instance, because that could be contributing to some of your memory issues. Sometimes that's all it is. Then we also do a series of cognitive tests. And they're nothing overly complicated, but they give us a good baseline. It gives us a good way to check and look at short-term memory, orientation, some basics, different domains of our memory that we can test to try to see how our overall performance is. And we can kind of use that collectively. Then I tell everybody too this, honestly, these tests, they're helpful, but you know yourself better than any test I'm going to give. And we take a lot of what the person is explaining or experiencing into account. And that guides us on most times of whether we need to dig further or not. But we put all that together. Like I said, medication, medical history, cognitive tests, what they're reporting, what they're experiencing, what their loved one is experiencing or thought they've been observing. And from that, we kind of formulate a plan. And like I've kind of mentioned before, sometimes that might be referring them to some other resources in the area. It might be a clinical study. It might even be one of those, let's follow up on this in 6 or 12 months, because right now, I don't think everything looks good, but it is a formal process that we do the same for everybody that kind of helps us to kind of get a good workup and figure out what's the best direction to go for that individual.
Great. Well, thank you, John. I appreciate your time and your insight to all the questions that we had today, and we'll talk again.
Absolutely. Thanks for having me.
We'll be right back to Gut Punched, Alzheimer's and Caregivers.
Your brain is who you are, your memories, your personality, your life. At the Neuropsychiatric Research Center, they're committed to helping you protect it. If you're 50 or older, you're invited to our free memory screening event where you can learn about a breakthrough in early Alzheimer's detection, the p-tau 217 blood test. This cutting-edge test may detect Alzheimer's-related changes earlier than ever before, and is offered only to eligible participants based on screening results and family history. Why call? Because a quick confidential memory check can give you peace of mind, help you establish a cognitive baseline, and connect you with research opportunities that could change lives, including your own. Call Neuropsychiatric Research Center, located in Fort Myers, at 239-939-7777 to schedule your free memory screening today and see if you qualify for the p-tau 217 blood test. That number again, 239-939-7777. Your brain matters. Let's protect it together. The p-tau 217 blood test is available only to participants who meet eligibility criteria determined during screening.
This is GutPunched, Alzheimer's and Caregivers.
Looking ahead, we'll have part 2 of our interview with Dr. John Huffaker from the Neuropsychiatric Research Center, and we'll talk about the benefits of participating in Alzheimer's clinical research, plus some housekeeping business. We'll continue to talk about our tenets or rules, but they will be scaled down a bit and eventually moved to our website. Same thing with our resources. We'll do the same, shorter but fully detailed on our website. Because our resources are very important, if you're not sure where to turn or how to connect, we'll be here to help bring you trusted resources. You can reach out to the Dubin Center at thedubincenter.com. Then there is the Neuropsychiatric Research Center. Find them at NPRC, southwestflorida.com. And can't forget Heart, Body, and Mind Home Care at hbmhomecare.com. You can check out the Alzheimer's Support Network at alzsupport.org. And to find your local chapter of the Alzheimer's Association, you can visit their website or call their toll-free hotline at 1-800-272-3900. They also offer an outstanding resource called Dementia Care Navigation, powered by Ripple and the Alzheimer's Association. It provides free, personalized dementia care, including a dedicated care navigator and tailored resources for caregivers and people living with dementia. You can get connected by calling 855-271-2662 to get connected. That's 855-271-2662. Take the first step. We talk about the GUIDE program frequently. It's another excellent resource that provides help and respite care, and it's free. You can search online for it or visit Dr. Perry's HealthSpan Partners at https://healthspansouthwestflorida.com. Another resource worth checking out is Aquilane Clinical Research at aqualaneresearch.com. A new one, Alzheimer's Support Network at https://support.network. Our website is gutpunched.com, and the email address is gutpunchedac@outlook.com or jeff@gutpunched.com. And thank you to each and every one of you who has taken the time out of your busy, stressful day as a caregiver to listen. We truly appreciate it. You're helping us to grow our podcast and its impact for caregivers. Thanks for joining us. And if today gave you even a little hope, hold on to it. God bless.
This has been GutPunched, Alzheimer's and Caregivers, with your host, Jeff Edwards. Don't forget to hit that like button and subscribe to us on all the platforms, like Spotify, Apple, Pandora, Podbean, and more. If you have a question or want to get in touch with us, our email is gutpunchedac@outlook.com or jeff@gutpunched.com. Caregivers, you don't have to do this alone.